Through all the years of human evolution, George and Jack have evolved into something utterly unique and spectacular. It is no wonder that their show, The Patriot Think Tank, sits so high in the...
There is nothing wrong with your screen. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling the messaging in this transmission. We will tell you the topics you may speak about. We will remove any speech we deem unfit. We will identify and protect you from all that is evil. You need only put your full trust in us. We are the government, and we are here to help.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of this epic new era of the Patriot Think Tank. I'm George, and that's Jack. And we're here. We want to start off just by kind of going over a little bit about what we're trying to do here, what the purpose of the tank is. You can check out after the show. We've put in links to our website and to any sources we use, but also to explain the website a little bit. Jack's been working crazy overtime on it, and I want to give him an opportunity to just kind of let you know what it's all about.
Sure. So I want to lead into this because we finally made it, right? And George and I have been working on this thing for months now. And when we first started out, we had this whole format, and we had it set, leveled out where I'm going to ask questions, then George is going to answer, and then he goes to Mexico on vacation. And he comes back, maybe 2 weeks ago, George? Yeah. And he comes back, he goes, you know what? I was thinking, forget about it. Let's just wing it. And I'm like, okay, we're going to wing it. So here we are winging it. So look, those of you that know me know that, I can get a little wordy, and I'm about to do that. But really, I want to frame out why we're sitting here today and what we're looking to accomplish. And I wrote it down, and I have to refer to it because I want to make sure that what I have to say, or what we're looking to do, actually comes out of my mouth, right? So I'm going to start out with a quote. It says, "No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." Now that's Friedrich Nietzsche. So what does that price look like? Summed up, it's recognition and action. Let's start here. Let's stop using words that divide people. That division, the division that needs to be created, is between the people and the politicians. Think about it. If you owned a business, would you hire an employee that would tell you what to think, do, or say? Their job is to focus on the needs of their state and ensure their state is fully considered in the grand scheme of policies. It is also to protect us from a centralization of power that says, this is what's acceptable to say, and this is what everybody has to do. That doesn't work for patriots. What works is freedom to decide what's good for ourselves individually, balanced with the consideration of its impact on other people. So, what link will unite us all? I believe that link that will unite us is a determination to contrast the founding principles of our nation and communism. Further, to identify what direction political decisions are moving us toward. George and I intend to identify decisions and proposals that are made by the government. We want to overlay those against the principles of communism so that people can judge for themselves. I believe the one action that will unite us is age-old. Treat others the way you'd like to be treated. It's an individual commitment beyond any legislation, and it's far more powerful. The American dream laid out by our forefathers has never been fully realized, but it's a beautiful vision. Some people want to abandon it. They talk about socialism. Socialism is the gingerbread house, but history tells us that communism is the witch waiting inside. There's a whole section called Education on our website. It aims to bring the American vision back to the surface of thought and action. So, in the end, George and I are striving, regardless of your political affiliation, to discuss a much bigger picture. You decide how you'd like that picture to look, then get involved and take personal ownership of its formation. We believe there is a sense of urgency required. So we're going to lay out some action plans, but we don't know it all, and we can't do it alone. We need you. All's in your court, Georgie.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, the website is definitely something we're very excited about. I definitely think, you know, I mean, I haven't put as much thought into what I wanted to say about it. It's just simply a tool for you to go in and find stuff, right? So we're even going to build a section in there for those jerk offs on friggin' on social media that are just out there trolling. We're going to have a section on the website that has hard facts right to the source. So none of this Google article bullshit, none of this, you know, factcheck.com, you know, Uncle Joe's fact check station, none of that crap. It's going to be taking you to stuff, you know, if the debate or the argument is on, let's say, campaign finance reform, you know, we're going to take you right to a government website that discloses election money and donations and that sort of thing. So that's kind of, you know, in a nutshell, a big part of the purpose. And of course, there's also tutorials on there, you know, copy the Constitution, that sort of stuff, like basic civics that Jack put together, you know, how a bill is made, that sort of thing. So that the website really is going to become a resource, a one-stop shop, you know, different bills that come out, et cetera. You know, we're going to be putting up facts as we find them. Of course, if there's topics you don't see on there, by all means, hit us up in the comments or you know, shoot us an email through the contact us on the website, you know, and let us know, and we will certainly get to those in order. But you know, for now, enough about the website. Let's go ahead and just jump in. So we picked kind of a softball topic for the first show. Softball because I think everyone can agree that we have major issues in our mainstream media today. You know, this is something, and really from my perspective, a big part of why we started this channel is because I'm fucking pissed off. That's why. I'm tired of seeing I'm tired of seeing, hearing, listening to all of these people redefining facts and thinking their opinions are facts. We're going to give plenty of opinions here, but we're also going to throw out some facts to back up a lot of the stuff we talk about. I'll let you know when it's my opinion, because I got tons of those too. But the reality is, when I throw my opinion out there, I don't start hashtagging it as a fact. I'll tell you straight out it's my opinion. If there's some shit you need to go think about it. You know, do your own research. But in the end, excuse me, there's nothing worse than what the mainstream media has been doing in the last really 10 to 15 years. It goes back further than that, but really escalated under the Trump era. And if there's anything, you know, and I'm on both sides of Trump. I like most of what he did from a policy perspective. You know, I could have did without the tweets and such. But the reality of the matter is, one thing that guy contributed, and Jack, I think you'd agree with this, what he's contributed is that he brought these people out of the closet. All these shrills that are out there in the media who no longer investigate stuff. They start writing stories on tweets, all this stuff. You know, he really brought them out and their leftist tendencies to the point where they can't deny it anymore. You know, maybe 6 years ago, we'd be having a conversation I'll be having a conversation with someone on the left telling me it's a conspiracy theory that the media is in the tank for the left. And the reality of the matter is, Trump dispelled all that, right? These people went off the rails, their heads exploded. It was beautiful to watch, actually. It was beautiful to watch. So, you know, and I think a lot of the stories that they put out about him really are what hit home. And really, it no longer became leaning, right? It became lies. Like, it became just a straight bullshit story in the title, right? I mean, Jack, we talked about this, right? With the whole Muslims are animals thing and the, you know, the Muslim ban, right? And all these talk tracks that they have. I mean, it's got to be driving you as crazy as it does me.
Yeah, you know, I think that at the end of the day, media is a corporation, and they're designed to drive profits, right? And so they take little sound bites, and they use those sound bites to influence opinion and propagate fear more than anything else, because fear sells. And we have a couple of clips on that we're gonna show everybody today. But the fact of the matter is that the depth of analysis that's being conducted, and it just is non-existent. There's a narrative, and that narrative is being driven at us, right?
And that's kind of the thing, though, right? Like I don't even buy. I used to think like you said, they're a corporation, they're trying to make money. I don't necessarily believe that shit anymore. Like the reality of the matter is, yeah, they want to make money so they can stay on the air. But Jesus Christ, MSN, who watches MSNBC? Seriously, like who can watch that seriously with a straight face, walk away and feel like you didn't just completely waste your time? I mean, the fact of the matter is, they're out there. The messaging is more important than the money right now. And that's the bottom line. I mean, they're all in sync. They're all in sync. It's not like someone just takes something and interprets it and spits it out false. They all do it at the same time. Like, this shit is coordinated. It's nonsense. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, let's just, shock value sells. No, bullshit. It's not shock value. They want you to believe this shit. When I was sitting in Jersey, having some nostalgia while I was reading an actual printed copy of the Daily News at my mother's house, and I opened it up, and the front page, this is the Trump calls Mexicans animals, and at this point, I'm totally like numb to this, and immediately I just start laughing because I know it's bullshit. I haven't even taken the second yet to go and listen to the actual quote, which is what they're banking on, right? They're banking on you're not going to listen to the quote, and you're probably not even going to read the article. You're just going to see the headline and then go, just spew all that garbage on the internet and be like, I can't believe Trump called Mexicans animals, which was the most absurd thing ever. And when I sit there and I think about that kind of stuff, here's the actual quote. Here's what he said as far as Mexicans being animals.
There could be an MS-13 gang member I know about. If they don't reach a certain threshold, I cannot tell ICE about them.
We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals.
All right. So clearly, and if you didn't hear it, you can play it back later. But clearly her question was regarding MS-13, and she was saying this was a police official, and that's what this conference was about. And what she was asking was, I could know somebody's in MS-13. I can know where they are. I could know who they are. I could know I could know the whole nine. And I'm not allowed to share it with ICE because my state is full of assholes. Is pretty much what she was saying. And Trump responded to that, all right, by making the point that, like, we're not letting, we're stopping a lot of these MS-13 people from coming in. And then he went on to call them animals. It's clear as day, okay? But now go ahead and Google, right? Go ahead. I was going to put some stuff up, but it's too easy to find. Just Google Trump calls Mexicans animals. You will find virtually every single news source available that comes up in your Google search with some sort of headline suggesting that the guy has called them animals. Okay, now that's not spinning, right? That's not spinning. That's bullshit, right? That's bullshit. That's just straightly not factual. Not to mention the effed up idea that MS-13 is not even Mexican. Okay, so they pretty much just called Mexico. They just pretty much called out Mexico for MS-13, which is an Salvadorian gang. All right, and they are animals for the record. Right, so the stuff that they do is insane. Okay, but there it is. Right, they all come out, they all spew that garbage out there, and we got to sit down and ingest it. And that's when I started really realizing these people were going off the rails.
Yeah, well, look, there is a reason that they go after Trump as hard as they do. Right, they definitely want him out. They wanted him out. And they were directing all of their effort and energy toward that. And I think the recent Veritas um, undercover type operation with CNN really revealed that. I know we have a little clip of that, but talk about backing what you're saying right now with some facts. When you share that clip with everybody, I mean, that's going to hit home.
But that's the thing, right? It's not like you got to go do a ton of research, right? It's not like I had to go into go to the Library of Congress to go pull that freaking video clip. Like that shit is everywhere.
But George, that's not it. You might do it, and the people watching this might do it, but there's a ton of people that don't want to hear it because they hated Donald Trump, and so they're not even going to look at it. They don't want to bother with it, and I think that's a problem on both sides of the house. It's like the Bill Burr comedian act where he goes, I'm going to go to imright.com. And I'm going to find facts to back up how I feel, and then I'm going to present them. And both sides do that. If we understand that, then we can understand that because you're on one side, you're going to find out. When you're on the other side, that was good enough. And that's the problem because we're being divided, and there's wrong on both sides of the house.
Yeah, there's plenty of wrong on the other. I mean, everyone likes to go, "Oh, Fox News, Fox News." Fox News is full of shit too. Don't even get that twisted.
Yeah, I know.
They're full of shit. I sat there and watched them. I sat there and watched them shut down Newt Gingrich, who was sitting there just basically making a completely accurate statement, by the way, that Soros was because they were talking about the riots and how these people are getting arrested and immediately being let back out, and then they get arrested and immediately let back out. And Gingrich just kind of smirked. Excuse me, and went on and said, look, the reason they're being let back out is because all the DAs in these particular areas, okay, were all funded by George Soros. And they were, okay? And you can go, and we will be posting the links to the campaign finance. I went right into the websites for Portland and for Seattle, and it's absolutely 100% true that these DAs were funded by Soros. And not even, they were funded heavily in their primaries. So they were doing it to even knock out another Democrat because they knew no matter who got the nod in those cities, that it was going to be a Democrat that won. So whoever won the primary was going to win the general election. They already knew that because those cities are in the tank. It's like why bother messing with a general election in New York or California when everyone's just going to go pull a D anyway. So if they're going to go pull the D anyway, that sounds interesting. Pull the D. Well, anyway, if they're going to go flip the switch for the D anyway, then just get the right person in the primary. If you get one guy, put him in the tank, not our tank, but the tank. And now that guy's in the tank, you can go ahead and have him do your bidding. And that's what these DAs did. They went in and they started, letting these people out as quickly as they got in. Gingrich just tried to highlight this, and they pretty much stopped him and were like, well, let's not make this about Soros. And it was like, but that statement is about Soros. Like, it was about Soros, and it was in context and in line with the questioning and the conversation they were having. But they literally teamed up on him, two of them, to stop him from speaking because they didn't want to have the conversation about Soros. Okay? That's some twisted shit. Now, I'm not getting in here saying, oh, well, they were paid by Soros too. I'm not even going there. But clearly there was a motivation for them to censor that speech or try to censor that speech or try to work against that. And the first thing I did, because of how I am, is I went and looked up the campaign finance information. And sure enough, he absolutely did. He absolutely did. Hundreds of thousands of dollars he put in. And for a local DA election, hundreds of thousands of dollars may as well be millions upon millions if it were compared to like a general election for a president or something like that. These are small elections that not a ton of people turn out for. I mean, a few $100,000, you can bust enough homeless people to make that election work. I mean, that's big money, all right? And it paid off, right? It paid off. And it's not a coincidence that the riots and looting started in those cities as well, right? That's not a coincidence.
Hey, George, let me ask you this, because I think that if I'm familiar with what you're talking about, no problem. But if I'm unfamiliar, there's a couple of little pieces that I would like to hone in on just to make sure that it's clear what you're talking about. So when you said busing people in, right? You're investing money and then busing people in for the primaries. Give us an example of that.
Oh, so this has been going on in elections forever. I mean, what they
No,
do,
I know, but
yeah, what they do is they basically will rent out a slew of buses on election day. They'll go out, they'll get as many people as they could stuff in the bus. They literally just going to areas where people otherwise would not have voted, and it's not a bad thing that in its essence that someone would go and try and encourage people to go vote. What's a bad thing is that they're doing it. Whether it's what they'll do in some areas is they'll give homeless people food. They'll be like, hey, we're going to give you this sick meal if you just come and vote for this person. And that's kind of how it goes down on that level for local elections. Is that because there aren't, a few buses could swing an election. Like that's how few of us are actually engaged in the primary process, which we were going to end up doing a whole episode on, because the primaries is the answer. That's where I've said this a million times. The primaries are where we get these sons of bitches. This is where we fight back. The Tea Party had it right before they let the media just label them as racists and all this shit. Like when the entire message was about spending, but look, nobody wants to hear that message upstairs, so they go ahead and find the racist guy in the crowd, or even send one in, who knows, right? With some sign that says some messed up shit, and out of 10,000 people, this guy with the evil sign, gets on all the newspapers and everywhere, and now everyone thinks the Tea Party's racist. But their way of going about it was absolutely correct, and that's why they had to be shut down. And they still exist, but it's not as organic as it started. And the reality is they went and primaried people, right? That's what they did. They organized and they showed up at primaries, and they weren't going after Democrats. They were going after rhinos. That's what they were going after. And they just started replacing them, understanding that if they just get this guy out, if the people of Kentucky will just band together and show up at a primary, Mitch McConnell is toast, okay? Toast. All right. Then you put in, you want to be a little smarter than the Tea Party was in some sense. You don't want to be putting witches and shit running against these guys. Right? You don't want everyone to have to show up and vote for a witch because she's the only one running for it. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek. That one lady, I think it was Maine. I forget where it was, but she was a witch in her history or whatever, which I thought was hilarious. But from a political standpoint, you could see how it'd be easy to advertise against an actual witch, right? So you want to have good candidates, that have the background and can withstand the vetting and all that fun stuff, to put in their place. But once you get them in, McConnell loses. It's not like Kentucky all of a sudden starts voting for Democrats. They're going to show up and they're going to click the R for your guy. They're going to click the R for the guy who does have some moral principles and is not in the tank and doesn't have decades of relationships and favors that he owes and needs to pay back. He's coming in fresh, right? So, and you can do this, every few years, right? So in McConnell's case, it would be, 6 to 12 years, right? You want to give the guy a second term, at least if he's doing well. But McConnell, though, has been in there forever. But that's the thing. You primary his ass. Everyone complains about it, but nobody does shit. Everyone complains about it, but then 5 people show up at the primary again, and it's all McConnell's family, and he wins. Like that shit's got to end. It's got to end.
All right. Well, I think, like you said, we're going to do a whole episode on this, but one of the intents we have is to get everybody to find out who their representatives are, begin tracking them. We're going to begin tracking various bills, overlay that against their voting records. Then you can determine if their voting record falls in line with your needs, your wants for your family, for your community. You make your own decisions, but we want to make sure that we highlight what's going on and what side of what's going on those politicians stand on. And again, if it's not in line with your values, there is a method to take action, and too few people do that. And really, that's one of the things that we're pretty passionate about, executing on.
Yeah, and I saw a comment from Ruben Rodriguez in the comments about saying that that's what they're trying to do in Jersey right now in their gubernatorial primary. Well, you know what? I hope they're successful. You know, the more and more people that get on this wagon, I've been saying this forever, and I mean years and years I've been saying this. And you know, I was praising the Tea Party when they first came out because that they were taking that strategy, and they were successful with it. Right? They removed a lot of rhinos. They really did. They won a lot of those elections, and the reality. I mean, they lost a few, right? Like they lost the witch example that I gave, but there were only a few. I mean, the majority of those elections they showed up in force, and there's no amount of buses that you can pay for when the whole district is showing up in force. There's just not there's no amount of money that's going to buy an election when people are motivated like that. And the Tea Party was absolutely motivated like that. And hopefully, you know, hopefully that works in New Jersey because they got a real asshat over there. You know, we got one here in California. You know, freaking these people, and now we may recall, right? We may recall Newsom in California. So let's see how that goes. But the fact that and the fact that California keeps recalling governors is starting to make me think that the elections were bullshit here in the first place. Because this whole like this is going to be the second governor out of like the last 4 or 5 that have been that's been recalled now, right? So I mean, where are all these people on election day? That's the thing that gets me. They can't do that shit in New York and New Jersey, but here they do have this recall process, and it's like, where were all these people on election day? They're so fired up that they're going to actually engage themselves in a recall. It's hard for me to believe they wouldn't show up at the election. It's just hard for me to believe that. But yet, lo and behold, you know, we get Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom, and everyone just scratches their heads and talk to each other like, did you support this guy? I didn't support this guy. Like, you have fun trying to go find somebody who voted for Gavin Newsom, right? But you know, back to the media point. I wanted to Jack had pulled up some cool. If you guys aren't familiar with Project Veritas, you know, Project Veritas is outstanding, and I give thanks to Shelly if she ever watches this for turning me on to Project Veritas as one of my wife's friends actually, who turned me on to them. At Project Veritas, basically, you can't be a better source of information than Project Veritas. They don't need to reference anyone. They don't need to provide, you know, footnotes and sources. They give it to you straight from the dude's mouth, whoever the dude of the moment is. You know, and some of the stuff that they were able to get on this particular topic was epic. It was epic, and I would definitely. There's a link below to Project Veritas if you're ready to go down. You know, I was going to say go down that rabbit hole, but frankly, with Project Veritas, it's not really a rabbit hole. It's just a matter of. It's just a matter of seeing what these people actually say and do. So here's a piece from Project Veritas.
Trump, we did it like when Trump was, I don't know, like his hand was shaking or whatever like that. We brought in like so many medical people to like all tell a story that like it was all speculation. That he was like neurological damage, like that he was losing it, he's unfit to, you know, whatever. We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. You know, so that's I think that's propaganda. You know, we had nothing else to run with at that time. We were like just taking shots off the bow, just hoping something would hit. You know.
So there's CNN's technical director basically saying this stuff right out front, like just saying this stuff straight out, and it's like, you know, for him to be involved in these projects that they're doing at CNN, it just knows, like he says, as a matter of fact, like I think it's propaganda. It is propaganda. It is.
Yeah. It not only that, George, but it's actually illegal, and I won't go into that right now about the legalities of it. We can cover that at another time. But there's a provision for the media, and it separates. There's a defined line between opinions and facts, and then propaganda. And so they've opened themselves up with that video for a lawsuit. And from what I understand, Project,
Have they really opened them? Who exactly is going to come after them?
Well, Project Veritas is probably going to go after them. I'm not saying whether it's going to work or not, but
It's
he's been
not
pretty
gonna work,
successful,
right?
George.
That's why they do it. That's why they do it. Like the level of comfort that they have in putting this bullshit out there, because those type of crimes, they're kind of like perjury, like it's a crime. It is clearly illegal to lie under oath, right? Clearly. Who gets prosecuted for perjury, right? It's always one, oh, well, I just didn't remember, away from getting thrown out. It's the kind of thing that's just impossible because you have to prove intent. And that's a very subjective thing. And of course, anyone getting sued or anyone, being prosecuted on it is going to claim that was not their intention, right? Or
So let me ask you this.
Bullshit.
All right. So if Project Veritas sues CNN, let's define this. If it rules against CNN, I win. And if it doesn't, then you win. How much do we have on it?
I don't care, man. I'll put a $50. That's fair.
All right.
That's illegal too. So we're broadcasting from Vegas right now. We're broadcasting from Vegas.
That's right. Yeah, live from the room. No, look. I hope you're wrong and I'm right. Who knows? I know he's going after him. My fingers are crossed. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just more skeptical than that, right? So
I know.
And Ruben just brought up another good point. Is that Project Veritas? So James O'Keefe from Project Veritas just got his account banned from Twitter, right? So another method of manipulation, by the left, and it kind of brings us into the day that we decided to create the Patriot Think Tank was we were having a conversation on this very topic, and at the end of it, Jack was like, we should have a show, but what we were talking about was like each of our perspectives. At the time, Jack was really pissed off about Amazon and Bezos was, he took away, I guess they were using the servers, was Parler, the Parler app, the conservative version of Twitter, and they were using Amazon servers. I assume, I didn't get too deep into how Amazon was supporting them, but in the end, Amazon basically took that power away, or took the ability to do that away, fired them as a client, and Parler fell apart and really never got back to where they were. And Jack was kind of pissed at Bezos and saying, I wish I could just stop buying from Amazon, but obviously we're all addicted to Amazon, but and maybe he has, I don't know, but in the end, the point that I was making was, don't get mad at Bezos. Don't get mad at the CEOs or the commissioner of Major League Baseball or Twitter CEO or Google CEOs. These people, okay, and this is my take on it, is that these people are not making these decisions organically. They're not sitting there saying, you know what, I don't like what this video says, so I'm going to pull it from YouTube. That's nonsense. I don't believe that for 1 second. And this little bit of it is all my opinion, but I will be on a quest to try and demonstrate it. But I just don't know how the hell you could, because this is totally done, in my opinion, behind closed doors. This is Bezos getting a phone call, right? And in that phone call, he picks up and, hey, how you doing? How you doing, Bezos? This is person X, and I got to tell you, this Parler app is really becoming a freaking problem, and we really need you to step in and do something here. And in the end, Bezos kind of looks at it and says, well, we're making a lot of money off these guys. They're starting to blow up. They're going to need more computing power. This is maybe not something I want to do. Well, in the end, right, whether it's Bezos is a CEO, so he's an employee. So there's a million ways that they can get to a guy like that, right? So you say, well, why would Bezos, sign up for something like that, right? And I don't think it's his choice, right? I don't think it's his choice. Because if history has taught us anything...
If anything in this life is certain, if history's taught us anything, it says you can kill anyone.
That's right. Absolutely anyone, right? And in the end, it comes down to the fact. Thank you, Michael, by the way, for that little tidbit. The reality is, whether it's actual killing him or it's just, all of a sudden here come all the sexual harassment accusers, right? Or whatever it may be, right? Whatever it may be, it's not difficult to take down somebody like that because money doesn't provide that type of power, right?
Hey, George.
Yeah.
George, so in your quest, right? I'm thinking about, all right, how do you prove that out? So here's something that just happened. So we have Delta Airlines, right, who came out and made a statement with regard to the new laws in Atlanta, the voting laws, right? So they came out and made this big public statement. It's blown up everywhere. However, 3 days before that, in a local Atlanta paper, they were praising the decisions that were made by the local government on how their voting laws had been restructured and the benefits that they felt were there. 3 days before it's in the newspaper, and then their CEO comes out. So is, your hypothesis of the CEO getting a phone call that far of a stretch? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch by any means. I think when you look at it, when you just look at something, right, and you see something walking, and it's got web feet, and it's got a bill, and you're saying to yourself, that kind of looks like a duck, and chances are, lo and behold, it is a duck, right?
It's a duck.
Now, it doesn't mean you didn't do any DNA analysis on the duck to make sure he was a part of the duck species or whatever, right? You just looked at it and were like, dude, this sure does look like a duck, And that's kind of what goes on with this kind of stuff, There's not going to be, and maybe one day this channel blows up to a point where we do have a team of researchers and we can do stuff like the Daily Wire does, and just like, you and I can just sick a bunch of people out there to go dig some stuff up and try and get some real investigative dirt. But in the end, you can't, even then, it's trying to prove stuff, is trying to prove stuff in a deep state sense is by nature incredibly difficult, right? It's not like this is their first rodeo, right? This has been going on since Truman, right? So, I mean, they've been warning about things, about organizations like the CIA, eventually the NSA is formed, which is even crazier. But this has been warned about forever, right? And yeah, so Ruben brought up that Stacey Abrams. I was trying to think of her name. Stacey Abrams was the one in it that started all the shit with MLB. I saw that on Daily Wire, and I forgot her name. I saw it yesterday, where Ben Shapiro was actually saying, and I haven't gotten a chance to look into this either. I reposted the video though on my personal Facebook. I'll post it to the Patriot Think Tank Facebook. But he was saying, and we talked about this last night, that there were some 100 or so CEOs that that are getting together over God knows what. But I know, while I don't know what's going to be said in the room, I'm pretty damn sure it's creepy. I'm pretty damn sure it's one of those, like, there's nothing good for us coming out of that, right? So that's not the kind of meeting where, we're hoping they're going to come out and give some sort of, pro-people speech, right? So, but I mean, the situation in Georgia is really another good example. These cats are going out there saying, comparing it to Jim Crow. I mean, this is how off the rails that the media has gone, is that they're comparing needing to validate who you are to vote as being Jim Crow laws. When the reality is, I don't think there's anything more racist than the idea, and I probably should have clipped the video of this. There was a guy who went around these college campuses, and I think it was Berkeley that he was at. Of course, I would pick Berkeley too for this. And he just started asking, do you think voter ID is racist? And right on cue, as you would expect from a good, Berkeley student, absolutely they thought it was racist. These young white kids really did think it was racist. And he was, just asking them straight out, like, so, what is it? Why do you think it's racist? And their responses, like, I assure you, if that the people who answered those questions and basically said it's okay to put them in a video, thought while they were saying it that shit was legit, right? I'm sure they thought, hey man, who's going to disagree with this, right? And they went on to talk about, some people, they don't have access to computers, and some people don't know how to use the internet. Like that, this is something we take for granted. Like, we meaning who, sweetheart? Right? Like, it's like, and they just go on and on. They can't find their way to the DMV. Some people just don't have a means to get there. Right? I mean, it was crazy. And lo and behold, he went actually to Harlem. So he flies cross country, goes to Harlem. He could have went anywhere, but he chose Harlem, and he went there. And he's stopping black people on the street, asking them, like, hey, do you, and it sounded so ridiculous. Like, the looks on their faces when he's asking, like, where are you going with this? He's like, do you have a driver's license? Like, does anyone you know not have a driver's license? And they're like, no, everybody has a driver's license. Like, and they're just making the obvious case. Like, he has to apologize sometimes. Like, look, I know this sounds stupid, but it'll all make sense in the end. And I guarantee you that all those college kids that watched that video later were like, wow, I look horrible. I look like a racist, because they do, right? Like, real racist, not like everybody's a racist kind of racist, but like a real racist, like not subconsciously, like they truly think, that black people can't figure out how to use the internet, and that I mean, the level of hubris and madness that it takes to align with that thinking, and what makes it really crazy is, of course, they're the ones that are there to fight, to help, right? Like, we're not full of shit. We're here to help you. We know, you poor little black person, that you can't figure out how to do basic functions in life, right? I mean, it's so condescending and effed up that, like, honestly, I was waiting for a black dude to just show up on the video and just slap one of these people. Like that's kind of what that would have made the video perfect if that would have just happened. But it's classic. It's just classic, and that's the media narrative. That's what the media got behind. That's what they're going with. They're going with, this is racist. It's racist to ask a black man to get an ID. That's their argument. I mean, it's so crazy. It's almost incomprehensible. You can't even imagine that someone would go on TV. Someone would say it anywhere, forget on television, and push it and promote it in unison. It's just nuts.
I'm going to take this opportunity to plug our website while you're sipping your coffee. So if I look back at a statement you made a little bit ago, you were saying that the lines are blurred and it's hard to connect dots. And so in our website, what I did was I put together a section, and it has to do with critical thinking. And at the end of, it's kind of a mini course, and at the end of it, you take a test. And that test was put together for attorneys in the UK. And when you talk about things like critical thinking, you're talking about things like inferences, you're talking about deductions. And so what it does is it goes through the various segments of how to analyze conversation and how to analyze the written word and connect the dots that aren't apparent. I would highly advise anybody. I've gone through it twice, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to tell you the score I got on the test the first time, but I did do better the second. Anywho, look at the time, Georgie.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So Jack put a piece together that we're gonna throw up on these different episodes. It's called "You Don't Know Jack." and he's going to cover different topics from time to time. Sometimes they'll be in perfect alignment with our message for the show. Sometimes they'll just be on their own. But they're just stuff that gets to him and really pushes buttons. So let's go ahead without any further ado.
This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state Big Brother.
So that was an excerpt from an interview from 1985 where the KGB agent was discussing the plans and the methods that are being used to convert the United States into a communist country. And when asked, what would you do or what can we do about this? That's the segment that I cut. The thing that stood out to me the most was he made a statement. There must be a strong effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism. And that stuck with me. So what is real patriotism? Well, let's start out at the base. Merriam-Webster defines patriotism as the love or devotion to one's country. Now, someone recently asked me, how can you love something that has at times committed acts against humanity that I find appalling? And, when framed like that, the shorter answer is you can't. But that framework doesn't hold up. When the ideals established by our founding fathers and the actions of our nation diverge, well, that's both a cultural and a leadership issue. Our Constitution clearly reveals a distrust of all concentration of power and authority. Abe Lincoln once said, I will stand with any man when he's right, and I'll part with him when he goes wrong. And what Abe really is talking about here is that he's fully capable of brotherhood, but he's not bound to it at the cost of his integrity. So in the end, what is real patriotism? Well, it turns out that I agree with Merriam's explanation. It works for me, but it has to be put in the proper context. And here's a context that I landed on I happen to like. And I'm going to read it to you. It says, America is best understood not as a country in the usual sense, but rather as the embodiment of a set of ideas, a nation dedicated to and held together by its dedication to a set of propositions. It is a creed rather than a culture. So put in that context, the next time somebody asks you, how can you be a patriot? Consider that and recognize they don't know jack.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
Yeah, and you know what? On that point, Jack, when we came up with the name for this channel, and I told it to one of my buddies, and we talked about it for a little bit. The first, and he's black, and the first thing that he says to me is, that sounds pretty racist. Now he was saying it half joking, right? He was saying it half joking, but at the end, there was a hint of seriousness to that, and I find it baffling, the use of the word, like patriot has become a dirty word now. Like the media is trying to turn patriot into like some white supremacist redneck racist that and it's just baffling to me that the whole thing fits with the script of Saul Alinsky. And if you're not familiar with Saul Alinsky, there's some good reading, Rules for Radicals. If you want to know if you feel like there might be a playbook behind all the crazy shit that's going on, I'm here to tell you there is, and that's it. And I definitely encourage anyone who can get their hands on it to go ahead and read it, because it's absolutely true. It falls in, and at the same turn, now that we're on good reading, you should have read this already, is Atlas Shrugged. All right. And for all the demonization of Ayn Rand, who wrote that, because it did turn into a bit of a wacky philosophy that spawned off of it. But the book itself is prophetic and absolutely was written some 60 years ago. And she literally outlined, she left a socialist country to come to the United States. And what she saw around her were the beginnings of what she just left. And she wrote a book about it. And literally, you will see so many similarities as to then and what happens today. Those that are friends of mine on Facebook know that from time to time I just put up a post that says, "Who is John Galt?" That's what I'm referring to. Okay, and for those that read the book, they fully understand what that means. And if you haven't, I'm not explaining it to you. You need to go and read that book because it's worthwhile. There are movies on it. They're not that good, frankly, because and the key actors. There's three. They made 3 movies to make the book, and the actors change in each movie. And the reason for that is that they could not find work if they continued on the projects. So there are some cool actors that you'll recognize in there, but it's just hilarious to me how the actors change. No one stayed with it for all 3 movies, and I don't have to explain to you why, right? So these are all people, some of them clearly just don't give a shit, but and those are some of the more familiar faces you see in the movies, but obviously the rest of them, would have been knocked out. But that.
Hey, George.
Interesting point on patriotism. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what you just said and direct people to the website. So if you go to the You Don't Know Jack section, there are videos posted there, and one of the videos is on Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he was kind of the father of modern-day propaganda. There is a brief video for about 10 minutes, and it talks about the ways in which propaganda is utilized to manipulate the masses. If you sit down and you take the time to watch that for a few minutes, and then go and watch the news, and keep that in the back of your mind, and I think that'll start to trigger a few things for people.
Yeah, I mean, there's one clip I wanted to show that everyone's probably seen, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit as well, as far as the nature of it, because when I had seen it on Facebook, and I'm pretty sure everyone else did as well, but I don't know if everyone understands who made it and what the narrative was. So I want to just go ahead and find that here.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
The El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. The fact is, though, when people see that, Jack, when you first saw that, come through on like a Facebook feed or wherever it is that you first saw it come through, well, let me say it like this. Did you think that was leftist, or did you think that was from the left or from the right?
Well, I thought it was from the left right away.
Yeah, as did I, right? Because I'm so used to the narratives and the the connected messaging with actual terms like war on women and those types of things. When they get this term out there and they all jump on it, and then all the networks. But Sinclair Broadcasting that put that out is actually a conservative-minded broadcasting network. So just. That struck me when I looked into it, because as I started to look it up, I absolutely was expecting this to be some conservative narrative that I would be going after. But that creepy shit was actually put out by a conservative network. Now, Sinclair is one of the largest broadcasters, syndicated broadcasters out there. This kind of took me down a rabbit hole because I didn't really understand how the whole syndication and broadcast, what the difference between broadcasting and other forms were. But apparently the reason why we didn't know that they're so big is because most of their channels are like Channel 41. You know, there'll be an NBC affiliate, but it's Channel 41 on your broadcast dial, right? So you need the antenna to pick that up, kind of thing. You know, and those types of channels, to me, it's kind of like, and I'm probably dating myself here, but it's kind of like, to the older people, if you remember, tuning your channel to UHF and seeing Uncle Floyd on that channel. I don't know if that was a New York thing or if that was nationally broadcast, but if you remember the old TVs, you would turn to channel U and it would just be usually static, but every once in a blue, there'd be a show on there. This Uncle Floyd guy used to be one of my favorites. But like that's kind of where it is. So Sinclair, they do have some local news networks that broadcast on major stations, but the majority of what they put out there, they have a map online of where all their stuff is. It's those random channels. But I just thought it was interesting because it came from the right, and that's some creepy shit, right? That's some creepy shit. They were writing in the articles. You know, they interviewed some of the journalists that had to do it, and even they were like, "Dude, that was some creepy shit." Like the idea that they would just get a memo that everybody has to read was kind of crazy. But mind you, the left does this as well. It just is not as orchestrated as that, but like they absolutely do it. When you don't hear something on one station, you hear it on every station. You hear it on Facebook. You get it pumped to your feed on YouTube. You get it, the Twitter, wherever else. So, but I just thought it was interesting, that particular one, because it comes from the conservative side.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the message here is don't trust what you hear. I mean, you got to take the time to look into it. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're all in the same yard. It doesn't matter if you're from the left or right. There's those folks out there that have a message that they want to broadcast. And if your ears are open to it without checking whether it's valid or not, you're being manipulated. And that's really what we're talking about here. And quite frankly, I am absolutely tired of having messages pushed down my throat from both sides of the house. I think people in general are far more moderate than that, but we tend to see the people on the extremes being brought to the forefront to push agendas. And it's time that the people in the middle start getting together and stop allowing ourselves to be divided by things that shouldn't be dividing us, and really start to take some action.
Yeah, I look at it like, to me, I try and figure out, from individuals, whether or not I feel like they're really in the tank, like in a sense where they really believe the bullshit that they're spewing, right? Or if they truly are dubious, and if they truly are, trying to keep a divisive message going. Because I think there are a lot of people out there who don't understand, right? They don't understand that this whole divisive piece. Like, they don't get the fact that there's an industry that absolutely needs to continue to purport racism everywhere, or it dies, or that industry dies, right? Al Sharpton, was the president of that committee for how long, right? Before him, Jesse Jackson, and you never see Thomas Sowell, become a big deal. Larry Elder is gaining his own traction now in the new age of information, but in the end, you don't see those guys getting their message out. What you see are the race baiters, the dividers, the people who just can't stop bringing it up, right? They just can't stop doing it. But then, and this is when we did that intro video, where it kind of said, do you believe what you see, or do you believe what you're told, right? Well, that's kind of it, right? When you go out every day, right, do you see this kind of racism going on every day, right? I'm not saying there's no racists in this world. I'm just saying it ain't even a fathom of the level that it's not even a small fraction of the level that it's purported to be that these people put out there. It's not even close. So I mean, in the end, again, we live in this age where somebody does something stupid and racist. If it gets on, it may have been the only act globally that day, but everyone in the world is going to know about it, right? And I'm being a little facetious with the only act globally, but the point is, even if there was only one act of idiocy on a given day, it's very possible that the majority of the planet will witness that act of idiocy, right? As long as one person has a camera on site, the whole world gets to know about that act of idiocy. So in the end, it wasn't so many years ago where the shark attack thing happened and everyone was afraid to go to the beach because of shark attacks, until somebody stopped and was like, dude, it's just a dead news cycle. There's less shark attacks this year than ever in recorded history. But the fact that it was on the news every other day made it sound like the sharks were coming, right? Like they're growing legs. They're going to come get you in your bedroom. Like, what the hell? But in the end, there were less shark attacks than ever. So there's an element of that they use, and we talked about Twitter, right? How few people are on Twitter, right? They're like, literally, folks, go down this rabbit hole of how many people are actually on Twitter making political posts. Okay, it's like nobody. Okay, comparative to the rest of the country, it's like nobody. Pew Research did a study, and I probably should have put it in the comments. I didn't realize I was going to talk about it, but Pew Research did a study about 10 years ago on Twitter, and there were other studies done in the years going up, but I liked the Pew one, though, the way they did it, and basically came to the conclusion that it was 10% of users on Twitter put 80% of the posts up, okay? And when it comes down to, the number gets even smaller when it comes strictly political, okay? We're talking about a fraction, a tiny, minute fraction of the country that tweets. But yet, we hear Twitter. How many times have you read a story that said the Twitterverse goes crazy? Twitter reacts to this. Twitter reacts to that. Like, who gives a shit what Twitter reacts to? I don't give a shit. Like if Twitter took our show and went viral, I wouldn't even know, because I don't even get on that shit. I don't even watch. I don't even read that bullshit. I'm a firm believer that Twitter makes you stupid. I encourage everyone to get off of it immediately. It's hurting you. It's hurting your brain. Okay. The reality of the matter is, no one should give a shit what Twitter says, ever, under any circumstances whatsoever. Okay. If there's anything that you walk away from this episode with, let it be that Twitter is bullshit. If the media sources Twitter, never watch that person again. Okay. If they ever, just start getting yourself away from these idiots. Okay. Because they're trolls. And we pulled up there, what was it? What's that group called? The Chinese group? Like Red something? There's a group.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about the ones that they sit in a room over in China. They hired another 50,000 this year, and their job is to troll, right? And they come in and they have comments. I don't remember the name of it, but it was interesting because for a while, if you were to use that name, that it's a Chinese word, if you use it, it was being removed from social media. They didn't want to see that word popping up.
Yeah,
there's a whole thing going on around it about 6 months ago. Yeah, I wasn't expecting us to talk about that either, or I would have had the exact detail on it.
Yeah, but propaganda is something. I mean, the bottom line is that when you get into it, and China actually is a big part of this conversation. They really are. They really are the Hitler of our day, right? And I say that not the Chinese people, right? The CCP I'm talking about, right? They trump friggin' Putin by far. Okay, like Putin is not a nice guy. Putin's just a not nice guy compared to the CCP. Like, these people are sick and twisted, and the amount of control that they have on so many, they've gotten their tentacles into so many aspects of global existence, from manufacturing, which we just learned during the COVID pandemic, right? We can't even get masks for our citizens because they're all made in freaking China. Like we have to revamp, we have to restructure the car industry to make ventilators because all the parts are made in China. Like we have to do all this stuff because everything's going down in China. And this stuff has been going on slowly for a very, 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 very long time. To the point where, the Chinese go to the WHO and tell them, no, the virus is, it's not communicable to humans. And the WHO is like, okay, then we'll make sure we tell the rest of the world. And that's exactly what they did. When they knew damn well that it was a lie, they knew damn well what was going on. But, they've got that kind of power. They've got that kind of power. And the fact that we're back with those guys creeps me out a little bit because, I've been following pandemics and the possibility of pandemics for many years. And when this one happened, I thought, well, here it is. We're all done. And then I realized that the virus is really not that freaking scary, and it is what it is. But at first, I was on board with everybody else. I was like holy shit, it's here. Stay home, nobody go out. It's like yelling at my wife for going to Costco. Like that's kind of how the whole thing started. Until you started learning about it. But in the end, it was China who was driving that whole message. It was China who was manipulating our media here in the States. Like, that's creepy shit. That's creepy shit, right?
Hey, hey, George.
Yeah.
I think we could do a whole episode on that, and I think when we do, yeah, there is I have a ton of facts, figures to reference, and so. I, for one, I just want to make sure if we go down the China road, there's so much out there that we can present that will get behind, the message. And it won't, we're not just going to be talking about it. Yeah, let's do it with it when we have the facts and figures in front of us.
So if you haven't noticed, we're not really conscious of time and we really don't give a shit, but we don't want to keep you on forever. So I am going to put up something that Jack put together for this particular one is in reference to HR 1, which is one of the creepiest bills to come across in quite some time. And we just wanted to kind of educate people on it a little bit and give you some ideas of some of its inherent creepiness. There's more on it on our website, so definitely check it out there. But if there's anything, anything you have to add to what he says, then by all means, hit it up in the comments. We'd be more than happy to respond. But here we go.
The Jack Attack is about taking action on an issue. I'll explain what the issue is, what drew our attention to it, then recommend how and why you should take action. The issue is HR 1, For the People's Act. It's a bill on voting reform. It aims to move control from states and put it in the hands of the federal government. Now, I've read over 300 pages of the 886 pages, but that was enough for me. Here's just one problem I found. Eligible citizens will be automatically registered to vote by mail. It's a default system. They'll be registered nonpartisan, and the reason it's a default is because they failed to respond in 45 days to a registration notice. Now, we're going to have a huge database of folks that are registered to vote by mail who are unlikely to vote. Now, here's the question. Is it possible that such a list could fall in the wrong hands? Let's consider that using some real examples, just so we're not making some giant leap in speculation. Think Edward Snowden, WikiLeaks. For a long time now, protected national information has been released by citizens and government employees. It's been targeted by foreign countries. Just recently, a student at Harvard compiled information on our military for China. Let's look at some FBI website stats. 72 cases of public corruption just in Q1 of this year. 52 cases of counterintelligence related to China in 2020. 1,693 cybercrime press releases, and 102 people on the most wanted list for cybercrime. Now, considering these facts again, is it possible an entity could gain access to the voter registration list? Is it feasible that by obtaining a list of pre-registered, nonpartisan voters who are unlikely to vote, that entity would attempt to influence our election process? The other thing you should know about this automated registration process is that I didn't find any provision to remove citizens from the list. Now, to assess the implication of that, let's take a look at an average citizen. Let's call him Dick Smith. One day, Dick gets a voter registration notice. Being a concerned citizen, Dick fills it out, sends it back. Before the next election, the thing that happens to all of us happens to Dick. Dick dies. The new notice is sent. When Dick fails to respond, he is registered again. This time, dead Dick moves to the nonpartisan pile, the one that our nefarious friends are interested in. Here's what we're asking you to do. Go to our website, click on Jack Attack from the drop-down, read and follow the instructions, and then send an email to 5 of your friends asking them to go there and watch a copy of this video. The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Help us oppose H.R. 1. Don't be a dick.
That's the fact, Jack! That's a fact, Jack!
That's right. Don't be a dick. So there's more information on Richard on our website. So don't be, go in there, take a look at HR 1. Jack's got an excellent tutorial in there as well as to how to get around some of these government websites and such. But definitely start to look in and help to educate yourself and kind of learn, get some tools going. And like I said, if you go in there and you see, you're looking for something, but we don't have it up there, let us know, right? Just hit us up. You could do that through Facebook or anything else. And we'll be happy to work on getting it up there for you. Because we definitely are trying to build an all-in-one, one-stop shop archive as current issues come up to make sure that we're getting new information and giving you, don't let someone tell you what's in a bill, right? So, one of the tricks I use is I open the bill and I start Control F for keywords, right? So when, like the Georgia bill, for example, I'll open it up, Control F, driver's license. Click everywhere where they mention driver's license in the bill, it'll take me to. So whatever specific point I'm looking for, I don't have to read 1,600 pages to get to that point. So that's just a small tip. But Jack, thanks for that. That was really good, actually. So, all right. So here we are. We're coming to a close. The Jack Attack and the and You Don't Know Jack will both be available on our YouTube channel as individual videos, as well as on our website. So by all means, check it out there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers. That's our first milestone. I guess they let us have a pretty little banner or some shit on the top of our YouTube channel page. And so, we're trying to set the goals. And the first one will be to get to 100. I think we've got 14 now. So you're pretty much, if you're watching this, you're not only responsible for clicking subscribe and clicking the bell, but you're also responsible for letting your family members know as well. So if not, we will come find you. Okay, so you can definitely count on that, right? We're research guys; it's what we do. So, and I'm pretty sure you're online. We'll find you. So just go ahead and subscribe.
We can't afford Guido yet.
Yeah.
The only thing is we can't afford Guido yet, but when we can.
Yeah, but when we can, we're coming for you. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. Jack, say goodbye, and then we're out.
Goodbye.
And like that,